Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Alright, so I'm here to bring you another budget pick for the Catch Cup. Now, it's not really that budget because you're still gonna have to spend a lot of candy, 400 candy to be exact. However, if you do evolve a Swablu into an Altaria, guess what? It's only 10k dust to give it a second move, and 25 candy. It's really cheap. Now, the cusp of cheap is whether you have 400 candy to burn. If you've been playing for a while, you likely have 400 candy to burn just for the Altaria. If you do have one, it's actually really dang good for this cup. As you know, I don't even have to give this thing much of a long introduction. Altaria is one of the most powerful mons in Great League. Well, it kind of took a hit. Well, actually, no, you'll still see it a lot since you've been seeing a lot since the preseason, but like it kind of took a hit with the newer meta shifts, but you know what? It's still a beast. So Altaria is very powerful. Altaria maxed out at near 1500 is one of the bulkiest and one of, like I said, the best Pokemon in the entire Great League meta. It's literally been super prominent. You still see it everywhere. You still see it a lot, and it's very likely you'll still see it in Season 6 of Go Battle League. It's great. It has Sky Attack. It has Dragon Pulse. It has a wonderful moveset. Sky Attack. You get there fast because of Dragon Breath. Well, not because you don't necessarily get there fast, but it still works. You still get there decently fast. So Dragon Breath is the most powerful fast move in the game. Clearly, just out of sheer damage, Dragon Breath, there's no oppression. Dragon Breath is an insanely good move. Couple that with Sky Attack and, of course, Dragon Pulse or Dazzling Gleam, and you have a nightmare that is called Altaria. This blue chicken did come from Generation 3. It was straight up hoeing since the preseason and destroying everything in its path. No, literally. This thing was literally part of the Core 3 team. I believe it was Registeel, Altaria, and Azu that literally wrecked everything in existence back in the day, and it still does really good now. As you see, a slew of resistances. You do have quite a bit of weaknesses, especially against Ice. However, because of its resistances and just because of the amount of sheer damage output it has, it's been consistently one of the best picks for Go Battle League, particularly Great League. And for the Catch Cup, if you're willing to shell out 400 candy to evolve that Swablu of yours, guess what? Like I said, it only costs 10k dust to give you a second move. So if you want to save Stardust, this is one of your best friends. And it is the strongest Dragon Breath user and the cheapest Dragon Breath user, not barring candy, for the Catch Cup. Alright, so here's the PvPoke.com rankings. Here I have, it's a specialized filter. I filter out the mythicals, and as you see here, we already have the 2 shield, and I already ran the simulator. Altaria ranks at number 7. It's really good. So the thing about Altaria is Altaria, because of Sky Attack, Dragon Breath alone, it's just extremely powerful, extremely oppressive. As you see here, it takes out most of the grass types. Scrafty, you do have some key losses, like against Hypno, Wishcash, etc., but this is bait dependent for the Wishcash matchup. That's assuming you get hit by a Blizzard. So don't be too worried about the Wishcash. And these aren't very strong rankings. A 500 ranking, well, above 550 is a little good, so like Hypno and Wishcash. But as you see here, it's not like 600. 600's like bad. 600 plus is bad. So even if you do lose these matchups, you have very strong matchups against, like, of course, Grasshole users, etc., Scrafty. And then you don't do well against Umbreon, etc., but you'll still do a decent amount of damage before you go down. Now, in the One Shield, things change. In the One Shield, Altaria gets even better. In the One Shield, Altaria is a beast! As you see here, you take out Scrafty, you do take out Shadow Victory Bell, of course, one of the favorite things about this. You also take out Swampert, Little, and Marowak. Now, your key losses, of course, you're going to have to watch out for things like Wigglytuff, but other than that, as you see here, Zweilous, Stunfisk, etc., they don't got nothing on you. You're pretty good. You're doing pretty well. You have pretty strong ratings against several things, except for Galarian Stunfisk. Just be careful, G-Stunfisk. G-Stunfisk can wreck your world. As you see, in the closer, Altaria also ranks in the top 10. That's huge. Altaria takes out things like Surfetch, Swampert, Hariyama. Basically, all the fighting types go down to the big burp. Big Burp also... Now, you lose against Stunfisk really hard, so be careful. You also lose against Azu pretty hard with Altaria. You can beat an Azu with Altaria, but it's going to be a really, like... It's super... It's very situational. Same thing with Skarmory. It's very, very situational. So don't worry about it too much. Those are very situational matchups that you can win. Otherwise, just assume you do lose them, because you kind of do if you look at the sim. Alright, so here's the Matrix, my favorite part of the video. I always say this because you get to see what kills you and what you kill. So, Melmetal, Thundershock, Superpower, Rock Slide. I wouldn't recommend any other moveset. This is what makes Melmetal so good. Both of these moves are very fast, very strong, and you can really use Melmetal's ability to charge energy with Thundershock to deal a ton of damage back to back. Queue up moves do a lot. You could do a lot with Melmetal. Well, you probably know that because either one, you've used it, or you've died to it a bajillion times. Me, it's more like the second one because I don't really use Melmetal at all. Anyways, Melmetal we have here on the left with the standard moveset as well as the Catch Cup meta to the right. So when we run the simulator, this is what you get. In the 2 shields, as you saw, Melmetal isn't the best in the 2 shield. You can break shields, but you're not going to convincingly beat a lot of matchups unless they're dragons, unless they're flying, unless you resist them like flying, Swilus. You want to avoid grass and fighters at all costs. As you see here, you have really bad matchups against Medicham and Machamp. Really bad matchups. I don't foresee a lot of Swamperts with Hydro Cannon, but you want to be careful. You do beat Charmers, though. You beat Dragons. As you see here, you beat Charmers, you beat Dragons, you beat Flyers as well, with pretty convincingly with Melmetal, just because you do resist those. You do have a ton of resistances against its moves. And you absolutely destroy Bastiodon. So that's always a plus. Destroying Bastiodon is always a plus. You beat Tropius, you also beat Snowy Castform, Clefable, Togekiss, like I said, Charmers, Sunrazor Leafers, Flyers, the whole shebang, you do beat them. And if you can superpower to death like you do with Obstagoon, it's very good as well. You'll beat Dragonite, you beat Mandibuzz, you also beat Ferrothorn and Shadow Skarmory. Now, what makes Melmetal kind of iffy is because if you do get outpaced or you do get resisted, it kind of sucks. The thing about Rock Slide and Superpower, they don't give you stab. So that's why it's so important to manage energy and shield well. Now, you're going to hate that I say this, but Melmetal does take some skill to play. As much as OP as it is across all 3 leagues. Because even though it's not as thick as it is in the other 2 leagues in Great League, don't get me wrong, it's still really strong. Especially if you win the lead or if it has a convincing matchup. In the 1 shield, things don't change. As you see, you still beat Flyers, you still beat Snowy, you still beat Flyers, you still beat things that you can punch to death with Superpower. You do very well against Flyers, and as Dragon Breath users, etc., and some Razor Leaf users, you do extremely well. You even beat Obstagoon in the 2s, just because Superpower sucks. And Obstagoon pretty much has to shield, because if they eat 1 Superpower, as you see, 139, you will one-shot a Obstagoon. Yeah, it's really dumb. You do one-shot Obstagoon, so they have to shield, because technically they don't, but they have to have some really big coconuts they have to have some really giant coconuts for that bait. And then no shield, Melmetal kind of gets a little bit of forgiveness. Like, the thing about Melmetal, it kind of wins and loses the same matchups. You can flip matchups depending on energy advantage, etc., and shield advantage. Of course, how everything goes, it's really situational. But as you see here, you beat a slew of Pokemon in the zeros. You still beat a good number of Pokemon in the Catch Cup meta in the zero shield. Obviously, you still lose hard against Scrafty fighters, mainly. You also lose against Scalar and Stunfisk, any ground types, etc. So make sure you do be careful of that. Fighters will end your soul, and you just have a really bad matchup against Azu. With Thunderbolt, you can flip the Azu matchup. I don't recommend you run Thunderbolt, though, just because of how squishy Melmetal is. And I don't foresee a lot of Azus being played around. So you pick one or the other, but I definitely would stick with the standard moveset. Up a shield, things might change. So if we put to the 1 shield, here's what happens. So if we give you shield advantage, the 1 to the 0s, you beat a ton of the meta, only losing to fighters. You actually beat Scrafty too, though, because I think with Scrafty, you can superpower it to death. As you see here, superpower, it dies, GG's. No, you double up on superpower, then it dies. So up a shield, it's really strong against a lot of matchups. You only lose against Medicham and Shadowcham. So if you're in the 1 to 0s, it's really, really good. Up 2 to 0s, you're a monster. Up the 2 to 0s, you only lose to Shadowcham and Medicham again. So you only lose against 2 matchups out of the entire Catch Cup meta if you're in the 1 to 0s or the 2 to 0s. That's nuts. So Melmetal is really freaking good, especially when you take the 2 to 1s, or if you have shield advantage. Melmetal is a beast. As you see here, you do lose more matchups because you're not in the 0 shield. You still win a decent amount of them. You still take out 1, 2, Wish Cash, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you still beat 30, like 60, 70% of the matchups. So you only lose against Wish Cash, Shadow Victory Belt, etc. But you're, like I said, even with shield advantage, especially in the 0s to 1 scenarios, like 1 0 2 0, it's incredibly powerful. But Melmetal is a beast. If this thing was allowed, it would run. It would do a lot of damage. I mean, if this was allowed, you'd see a lot of mirrors, and it would be super annoying because it would be bait central in the mirror, or whoever has shield advantage. That's the worst thing about having the Melmetal mirror. If you get the Melmetal mirror, whoever has energy advantage or whoever falls for the bait first is usually the one that loses, because superpower chunks. Just to give you an example, if you put Open Great League, you go Melmetal on Melmetal action, we do this number right here, watch what happens. If Melmetal eats superpower, 103 points of damage. Now this is vastly CMP dependent, so as you see here, in all even shield scenarios, unless you're up shields, you're gonna have a really good time in the mirror. And that's, yep, you're gonna have a really good time in the mirror. Alright, so the reason why I give this thing a 7 out of 10 is just because it costs 400 candy, and along with that, it's very weak against Bastiodon and against fairy types. Unlike things like Obstagoon with Gunk Shot, you really don't have an out versus a Charmer if you get into one. You just have to pray that it has a lot of damage on it, and that it has no shield so that you can hit it with a Sky Attack to KO. But that's what makes it really bad. So Altaria, even though it's really good, it does a ton of damage. There's just too many checks that really make it hard for me to say, okay, Altaria's a beast. Well, it's a beast, but like, for like an overall Great League, it's still really good. It's just the issue is you're probably going to see Wigglytuff a lot. Wigglytuff is probably one. You might see things like A-Slash because Alolan Sandshrew was spawning during an event. And there's just, if you see Bastiodon, if you see Bastiodon, and it's mainly Charmers. Like, it just has too many hard losses. You have to watch out for G-Fisk, which people can have. You have to watch out for Azu, which people can also have. You also have to watch out for all the Charmers, and you have to watch out for Ice types. So that's a lot of things that check Altaria. Now, don't get me wrong. You could still win. If Altaria is Altaria still has really strong matchups against a lot of the meta. So because of those strong matchups, that's why it's rated so high, despite the fact that there's so many checks against it. The second part about it is that Altaria is also expensive. You need 425 candy. So 400 to evolve it, 25 to second move it. That's a lot of candy. In other words, the only thing that really need 400 candy to evolve is, last time I remembered, is this thing, Wailord. Wailord's another one. You need Wailord for 400 candy. You need Gyarados for 400 candy. That's a lot of candy. And if you don't play a lot, you're probably not going to have the 400 candy for Altaria. Now, the reason why it's rated so high, too, is because it's only 10k for the second move. It beats its matchups, it beats its positive matchups very strongly, and it does a ton of damage with Dragon Breath. It's overall a really good mod, as long as you keep it away from its checks. But the only reason I can't give it anything higher is because it's, like, super expensive. It does have a lot of hard checks in the like, Open Great League, and just the possibility of, like, fairies and ice types being around. Ice, not so much, but Fairy, there's a good possibility because that Wigglytuff used for Kanto Cup can be used for the Catch Cup if you caught one during Spotlight Hour or if you just find one in the wild. Or if you find an Azu, then Azu versus Altaria is just GG's. Altaria has such a weak matchup against Azu. Unless you are really ahead in a totem pole, you are, like, in energy, you aren't going to beat Azu. Anyways, that's the analysis, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. Altaria is a really good pick. If you get a good level 1, like I said, it's not going to cost you a lot of Stardust. So if you could shell out the candy, Altaria is actually a really great pick for the Catch Cup. And in fact, it's also the most powerful Dragon Breath user in the Catch Cup because of its sheer bulk and its ability to handle its positive matchups very, very well. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys have a good one, and I hope you're having fun and you are getting ready for the Catch Cup.